Toxic bosses are a canon event for most employees. Here's what they cost organizations. It's so weird to think that people, you know, these toxic bosses, you can't get rid of them. Have you ever had a horrible boss? I've had some nasty boss. I've had a lot of nasty bosses over the years. And I always wanted when I was a boss to never be the nasty toxic boss. I was like, how many days off do you need? Listen, you got to take some time off. Listen, I respect you. Let's keep going forward. I always was really interested in trying to be not toxic boss. Toxic bosses, they're the worst. 24% of employees are currently working under the worst boss they've ever had. 24%. This is Fast Company reporting these numbers. It's widespread issue plaguing employees and organizations across various industries. 87% of professionals have had at least one toxic boss. See, I think it happens because like because I've seen this so many times. Someone's a great server, and then someone's like, "Hey, you'd like to work a lot of hours. You want to be a manager and move up in the world?" And they say, "Yeah, I'd love to be a manager." And they're like, "All right, you're a manager now." No leadership skills, no leadership training, no understanding of how to make things work, or just a crippling sense of self-conscious, just inferiority complex because they don't know what they're doing. I think that's probably the biggest problem. I think this relates to cronyism because when you put people into places because their relationship with the boss, you're not appointing experts in the field, and these are just shitty bosses. They don't even train them because who gets training anymore? You don't know everything you need to know out of high school. Too bad you're in this position. Good luck. A toxic boss typically demonstrates leadership patterns that are narcissistic, authoritarian, self promoting, abusive, and unpredictable. Research has found their behaviors negatively impact both individual and organizational performances. Well, yeah, it makes perfect sense, right? Our ongoing research, which is being conducted through the University of Calgary, continues to explore toxic leadership in today's organizations. In our initial study, we conducted an in depth interviewed 20 employees across industries in North America on behaviors of impacts of toxic employees. Wow. A mistrustful work environment leads to a higher a higher risk of cardiovascular disease. People experience work mares, nightmares about work. Behavioral changes like disordered eating, increased alcohol consumption, and binge watching as a distraction also occur, which often cause strains on employees' personal lives and relationships. I totally think that's got to be true. I mean, there's got to be a reason why people are addicted to porn and video games now, right? It's because they're shitty bosses at work. Nowadays people are even more toxic. You get this horrible email, right? You're like, oh my god, I just got this horrible email from my boss. What the heck? How could I even? And then you read it the worst way. Do you ever get an email and you read it in the worst possible voice you could even muster? You're just like, maybe they didn't even mean it that way, and you just like, you're placing your kind of paw on the tone of the email. And so I used to have this boss because I worked nights, and he would send these nasty emails like with all caps and shit. And I'd be like, am I crazy? Like, this guy yelling at me through email? Am I the one? They're like, no, this guy's crazy. He's an asshole. You should with him during the daytime. And I'm like, I'm so glad I'm not here at the daytime when he's here. Holy crap. Because he was my director. But luckily, I hardly ever saw him because I was always at night. So when I saw him, I'd be like, oh, yeah, hi. Got lots of work to do. Have a good one. And I'd like just make myself scarce. And then he got fired. He got fired. Oh man, it's so crazy to think how people are living under the iron boot, toxic work. Oh my god, I couldn't imagine having work mares. Like I have to sometimes deal with. I love my job, but I have to deal with intense situations sometimes. But my boss is pretty cool. Uh, my boss is pretty cool. I think not toxic for sure. And man, I I'm so glad. I mean, I have had lots of toxic bosses though. The worst is when you have two bosses and one's hella toxic and the other one's pretty cool, and you're like always going to mommy to find out that daddy was a douchebag and always going for to one to the other, you know? It's like, and you don't want to talk to the one that's an asshole all the time, even though it's the same message. One's horribly toxic and the other one's like a normal human. Man, that's horrible too. Or your boss's boss is really cool, but your boss is a piece of crap. Man, I've had all those situations. It's the worst. Yeah. And no, normalize emojis and work emails to properly convey tone. Totally. Or have meetings, talk to people. Or I think they should have you should have to listen to it read to you. Like you could do that with AI now. Like read this. AI can also soften tones of emails, right? The, the cost of the organizations incurred due to toxic bosses is shocking. Research found that this type of leadership leads to high employee turnover, low morale, increased stress, a fear-based culture, and decreased individual and organizational performance. Man, I'm getting flashbacks right now from places that I've worked, right? Like toxic work environments are the worst. And then it hurts everybody. Everybody there. Even the people who aren't totally affected by it, like they're really strong and they're like, yeah, well, this is just a job. And it's like, even those people, they are totally affected by it because everyone else is so afraid. A culture of fear is the worst. I mean, you need to not be afraid of where you work. Work mayors, I mean, holy shit. Decrease in organizational trust and employee morale. Man, bad bosses cost companies billions in stress-related health expenses. Oh, that makes sense too, because you're like, fuck it, I'm calling out. Like, why not call out of your I would like just call out. I never called out, but I could totally understand why other restaurants and businesses that I've worked, other people's teams called out way more than mine because I was always like trying. I don't understand how people who've had toxic bosses become toxic bosses. I don't get that either. Because well, that's how it was for me. Well, yeah, exactly. Was it cool? Did you like it? No, then don't fucking be that way, man. What's wrong with you? Companies should consider using behavioral assessments for hiring and promotion decisions, collecting upward feedback annually as part of performance and compensation decisions, and conducting objective third party investigation when toxic leadership is expected. Man, that's impossible. That'll never happen. Like the introspection of teams, forget about it. The whole system's broken. While some toxic bosses may be referred to as brilliant jerks, their brilliance comes at a steep cost to people, productivity, and profit. That's so true. Like, have you ever had a boss that was great and their boss was toxic, and you had to stand there and watch while their boss like skinned them alive? And you're like, are we all just standing here watching this guy, my boss, gets just reamed, just get bent over the barrel and reamed? And I'm like, this is what you deal with? This is how your boss talks to you? Holy shit. Have you ever had that happen? Oh my God. You can react with emojis in Outlook. Yeah, but for a long time, emojis were considered not professional and you shouldn't use them. When I had my company, there was transparency and fun, not a lot of work done though. Hey, maybe if you have more productive hours of work, you don't need to work as many hours. I don't know. It seems crazy to me. Toxic work environments. It's so true. And so I think that's so interesting that was the this was an article that came out just a couple days ago in Fast Company, and I just want to look at this like turnover on Trump's A team because A team is made up of members executive office of the president. It doesn't include cabinet secretaries. So he was a cronyist, but look at his turnover. Look at his turnover under Trump. Okay, 92% over the 4 years. So you can see that every president had turnover. Reagan 78%. Bush HW 66, Obama 71%. He only lost 4. Look at it's funny how it all goes down. It's like they hire the first year they get through it. The second year a bunch of people get fired, and then by the end they fired a lot of people. But look at this. The problem too is that Trump didn't hire new people as he fired them. So because he just wanted to consolidate power under himself. So he hired interim people that wouldn't have the oversight of Congress. 92% turnover. Do you think that might be because of a toxic work environment? This is of course from Brookings Institute. They've crunched the numbers. If you lead with fear, if you lead with cronyism, if you lead with with this toxic just dressing down of people and firing people over Twitter, you're going to have a lot of turnover. 92%. That's pretty wild. So uh, if you've ever had a toxic boss, you know, God, I don't even know how people look themselves in the mirror. It's funny because Donald Trump, he made his whole career, his whole like persona about you're fired, right? You're fired. That was his catchphrase. And he turned firing people into his full-time job. Like he turned being a toxic boss into a full-time like his thing. He it's like it's like Cindy Crawford with the mole. She's like, it's my trademark. I turned my birthmark into my trademark. His trademark was being a toxic boss. Amazing. I'm what an incredible thing to do. Yes, people say I'm a toxic boss, but I'm a toxic boss and I can make that my thing. Imagine sitting there and being like, let's turn this weakness into a strength. That's inspiring. Donald Trump inspires me. I'm going to turn my weakness into a strength. What's it going to be? I don't know. Drinking beer is my weakness. I'm going to turn that into a strength. I don't know. Bartleby, oh, humanity. What a joke.